Jonathan Barkan of Dread Central, and I'm here with Michael Tully, the director of Don't Leave Home. How are you doing, sir?
Good, good.
How has your South by experience been so far?
It's been great. I live in Austin, so I came here as a filmmaker from 2006 onward for many years, and all I would do is like come to 6th Street and then go away. And now that I live here, I never come here to 6th Street. So the idea that I was just down, someone just asked me like, where should I go eat? And I was like, I have no idea what to tell you. But it's been great so far.
And 6th Street is rather seedy, I guess is an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, for you, in the sense of like, for thinking of Dread Central specifically, the idea, the Draft House does a thing called Terror Tuesday here that's been going on, and you go on Tuesday and you'll tend to forget, so you'll go in at like 9 or 9:30, and it's normal, and then coming out into this just like wasteland of people after watching a strange kind of horror cult film. So yeah, it's definitely nowhere that I would like to be if I could avoid it.
Sure. So coming to your film, before the interview started, you stated that it was something that was lurking in your head for a while. So can you talk a bit about the process of putting it on paper and then bringing it to fruition until now where people can see it on the screen?
Yep. So initially, it's funny, the last film I made, Ping Pong Summer, was an 80s movie. I tried to make it feel like a lost 80s movie that was on the shelf, so we shot on Super 16 millimeter. I wanted to do a tribute to the hip-hop I loved of that era. So typically as a filmmaker, I love all kinds of movies. I watched 300 movies last year in all genres. So I feel like after I do one, I want to jump into another genre. And art horror was one that I just am obsessed with and have loved. And I think it's actually really, dream logic specifically is like hard to do. I mean, every kind of film is hard to make. So after Ping Pong Summer, the producers were like, that went well. Everyone had a good time. Do you have any other ideas? And I just said, Don't Leave Home, a creepy movie in Ireland. And that was all I had. And at that point, it was like on IMDb, it was like, how is there a movie not called Don't Leave Home? Like, it just seems like this in the canon of Don't Look Now and the canon of Don't Go in the Basement, or all of there's like 80 or 90 at least Don't movies. So I wanted to contribute to that. But it took a long time to write. At that point, I knew what the movie would feel like. Like, it's not specifically horror or graphic, but like that sense of when I was younger watching like Bad Ron or a movie that just felt like unsettling, like more psychological thriller than
like
horror.
Dread pervading over every scene. There's just something unsettling.
Yeah, there's something unsettling underneath. So that was what I wanted to attack with this film. And then it took a long time. Like now the hook of the film is that it's based on an urban legend of a haunted painting. That didn't come in until the 15th draft. I could probably make 10 different versions of this movie that don't even look alike.
Yeah.
So it took a long time. It took about 3 or 4 years, and trying to get enough money. And when you're making an original movie that in the third act doesn't go like torture porn or Saw, it goes like Tarkovsky and Bergman. It's like, that's not a recipe for people wanting to throw money at you. but it was sticking to our guns, and I felt like that's what I wanted to do, and yeah.
But that has changed now, as we see over the past few years. The what's called elevated horror and the art horror is now becoming very popular. We're seeing it with A24.
Yeah.
We're seeing it with other titles. So it seems like this now has a very important place in the genre.
Yeah, there seems like a zeitgeist of horror filmmakers who are inspired by art cinema more than just whatever the canon of horror films, and I'm really excited about that. I mean, the idea of the art horror or Zulawski's Possession or something, but thinking of a Don't Look Now or even Wicker Man, that kind of stuff, Symptoms, all these films that are like, I don't know if I'd call that horror, but I wouldn't just call that a drama for sure, you know? So that's the kind of uncomfortable zone I wanted to play in. And also I wanted the film to have a sense of humor. I feel like movies really take themselves too seriously, and even if like right now there was an earthquake or something happens, I feel like we'd maybe be joking on the way downstairs, like as we're trying to get out of town.
Or as we're falling into the into the abyss.
Yeah, the convention center abyss. That sounds like a nightmare. But yeah, I wanted there also to be a sense of humor, and it was really interesting. The initial cut of this movie was over 2 hours, and it just was zapped of humor. It was playing like this bad BBC drama, and I'm like, I thought we had humor. I thought we had some humor, and the more we trimmed down, and we got the movie now even it's not even 90 minutes with credits, the humor came out. So it's a really like tricky line, tricky balance.
And horror and comedy are very much intertwined. We just spoke earlier with Jim Gaffigan, the comedian, and we spoke specifically about that. And as he brought up, both have this idea of creating tension and then there's a relief.
Yeah.
So how do you, as you say, you have a film that's over 2 hours, then you have to start cutting to bring out the humor, but did you find that you were also bringing out the horror as you were making these edits too?
Yeah, no, I think it applied in both cases, and you're talking about that comedy and horror. It is a sense of just a rush of adrenaline almost. The body, the frequency kind of rises and clenches. So the same thing applied. It was just, for me, I wanted to make a movie that felt lived in. It's about an American artist who goes to this country estate in Ireland, and I wanted it to feel like to breathe, but I always wanted the movie to be moving forward, which is also a kind of sounds like a contrast in style, but the same thing applied to the tension. Is I'm a big believer in, if you have one moment in the film that kind of checks a box, you've done it. Leave it alone. You don't need 3 of those, you know, like so many times a movie, I don't even want to call out another movie, but seeing something, and the longer it pushes into that 2-hour zone, I start checking out, you know, and I'm like, man, if you got out a little sooner, I would have just been like full thumbs up. You gave me time to kind of question things. So that was another big decision we made.
Sure. I'm glad that you brought up that this is a film that takes place in Ireland, because the location of a horror film it has such an important impact on the atmosphere of a film. So can you talk a bit about how you utilize that location to its full effect for your film?
Yeah, I mean, it's finding a great location is the thing. I had wanted to shoot in Sligo, which is about 3 hours outside Dublin, and as the budget shrank and we couldn't get the money, that means you can't put people up and you can't pay per diem, so we had to find somewhere in the Dublin zone. I went over, it was a week after South by last year, I flew over, so we were prepping, and we had a location in mind that was in Wicklow, where all the Irish stuff usually shoots, like Vikings and the Game of Thrones when they shoot in the Republic. It's just about an hour below Dublin in that zone, and the location fell through. They said something about, we're having this little music festival on the grounds when we were supposed to start shooting, and we're like, wait, what? I was just picturing this little like Irish flutes and stuff with like 30 people, and it was like a 5,000 or 10,000 person rave.
Oh wow!
And I was like, that's not going to work. So we didn't. I went over there, and the location I thought we had fell through. We hit the ground running and found this place called Killadoon in Selbridge, which is about a half-hour west of Dublin. And as soon as you got in there, one of the rooms in the house on one of the floors had apparently for 60 years never not been open. So one of the grandfathers had died mysteriously in there, and it was just sort of common where they're like, grandpa's in that room. I didn't ever get any, and I'm like a wimp, man. You give me like 2 minutes in a dark room, and I'm like sprinting out of there. But so it had the energy, but it was also like, also when you're making a low budget movie, you can't afford to like build the world. You know, you have to find something and then be as true and authentic as possible. So it was a matter of that. The location was a gift that gave us a lot, and then working with a great cinematographer like Wyatt Garfield, just trying to cover the house as much as possible, and our production designer Bart Mangrum just saying, what are the real gems in this place, and just make sure we're not leaving here without having shot that room out.
Now, you've spoken a lot about everything that was put into the film, all the hard work, all the research, all the development, all the headaches that had to be, and the fires that had to be put out on the moment. But now I'm wondering, as you have this final film ahead of you, what do you think the audiences are going to get out of it?
It's really tricky, because here I love talking about movies, maybe more not my own, but I'll still talk about my own. But I really feel like when you make a film, like a little bit of your soul, you lose a little chunk of that. You know, it's hard. It's like falling in love the first time. You don't fall as hard the next time. And it applies to cinema. And the hope is that that little chunk of soul will get into the movie and land in there. Yeah. And I feel confident that we did that. But ultimately, it's like, once it's done, I feel like my opinion about this thing just doesn't matter anymore, you know? And my hope is that people will stay with it enough and be able to go on the ride of being like, that scene's funny, that scene's scary, that scene's dramatic, that's soulful, trying to put a range of emotions in a movie. And it really is, you know, when you're making stuff like that, like a David Lynch film or someone like one of people that I really look up to, that will just piss people off, you know, and they're going to go running from that because they don't have a handle on it. And I personally, as a viewer, love that. So I think the main thing is knowing that I'm not going to win everyone over with this film, but not feeling embarrassed about that or insecure about it, and just knowing that we're making stuff that really has a distinct voice and being proud of it at the end of the day. But also, it's like, it's yours now, man.
So as you said, the film follows this urban legend of a haunted painting. And in horror, urban legends are the foundation of many a great horror film. But can you talk about your thoughts on the importance of urban legends, even outside of cinema, and just their place in society and how it helps you as a creator?
Yeah, well, I mean, one thing I wanted to do with this is something I'd heard about. My dad is from Ireland, and I just heard murmurings when I'd go visit there, but there's not much writing about it online. But there are so many in Ireland. You know, the haunted painting hook, I think you could shoot it in Texas or you could shoot it wherever, but it just really lent itself to Ireland with the Magdalene, the laundry with the babies, and then with the IRA, and there's a lot of history there and sadness. But for me, urban legends, I just feel like as life gets faster and attention spans get shorter, and we're just like sucking in content and just like putting it out of our brains, I wanted to try to put something in the world that would maybe land, and just even like 2 years from now, someone would say, what are your favorite Irish urban legends? And they would reference this one as if it was part of the canon, which is an ambitious thing to ask for. But it's a test to see, like, because people were just churning through, we're calling it content now, we're not even calling it films or movies anymore, trying to put something in there that like, also, that maybe would make you want to rewatch it, which is again another ambitious thing to ask for. But for me, urban legends, I just love the idea of is it real, is it not real, and then just by nature of giving it energy, it becomes real, you know, and whether it actually isn't really the point at the end of the day.
Wonderful. Now, how can our audiences see this film?
If a lot of distributors bid on it and want to put it out in every theater in America and the world. But right now, we just had our premiere yesterday. It seems like there was a positive response. I have another screening today. And the hope is that, yeah, we find, I'm learning with all this stuff, when you make kind of stranger independent cinema, it's not going to be this maybe bidding war where like all 30 distributors wanted it. You really have to find maybe a few are going to respond to it and just go with the one. It's whether it's with publicists or whether it's with sales agents, whether it's with distributors, going with the positive energy, or a festival even. If like 2 festivals want it, the people, you can really tell when someone responds to it. So my hope is by the summer or fall, will be not just like dumped straight to VOD. I'd love to get a little bit of a theatrical run, but I know it costs a lot of money and it's harder to come by these days. But yeah, the hope is by the summer or fall, regular non-film festival world will be able to get Don't Leave Home into their minds.
Yep. All right, Michael Tully, thank you so very much. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you.
And best of luck to everything you've got going on.
Thanks so much. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Thanks so much for checking out this interview. We want to thank our sponsors, Dark Sky Films, Shudder, and Epic Pictures for their support. Also, a big thanks go out to South by Southwest Convention for having us here. To subscribe to our channel for amazing content, go ahead and click right here. To follow all of our South by Southwest coverage, you want to follow this playlist. To see amazing exclusive horror clips, click here, and make sure to get the very best in horror news by going to dreadcentral.com. Thank you so much.